Chapter 3645. After Ji Tianxing finished speaking, he started to control the heaven-destroying sword formation with both hands. The heaven-destroying sword formation in the surging sun lake was different from the one he usually used with the burial of heaven sword. Normally he would use the sword rain to summon tens of thousands of starry giant swords to kill the target first. Then, the tens of thousands of starry giant swords would form a sword formation. This kind of sword formation was very rare in the God realm and Dragon realm. Only a few peak divine kings could do it. In addition, the power of the heaven-destroying sword formation was extraordinary. Therefore, Ji Tianxing could usually kill strong enemies with this move. But it was different this time. He calculated that the Taotai and Xianxi's elites would arrive. If he used the heaven-destroying sword formation at the last minute, it would not be powerful enough. Therefore, he spent a few hours to bury 99 divine swords in the surging sun lake in advance. He used the 99 divine swords as the foundation and used a large amount of divine power, god stones and materials to set up the heaven-destroying sword formation. In this way, the power of this heaven-destroying sword formation was about 5 times stronger than the heaven-destroying sword formation he usually used. It was even stronger than the one he used at the Starry Cliff with the help of the extraterritorial stars. Such a powerful heaven-destroying sword formation was enough to kill everyone except Xianxia, Tao Yongxing, the high priest and the right guardian. Time was very tight. Ji Tianxing had just finished setting up the heaven-destroying sword formation and was about to finish the work to hide the sword formation more perfectly. But his divine senses detected that the elites of the 2 clans had arrived on the divine ship. Therefore he could only hide and wait for the elites of the 2 clans to step into the trap. He was still worried that Tao Yongxing and Xianxia were too cautious and would not easily fall into the trap. He did not expect that his worry was unnecessary. Tao Yongxing, Xianxia, and the rest had absolute confidence and did not take him seriously at all. Therefore his counterattack plan was unusually successful. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As Ji Tianxing cast spells with both hands, the heaven-destroying sword formation within a radius of 10,000 miles immediately sped up. The sword formation burst forth with dazzling divine light, releasing an even more powerful pressure and sword chi. Under his control, 20,000 starry giant swords maintained the seal while the other 20,000 giant swords flew back and forth between heaven and earth, attacking the experts of the 2 clans. Swish, swish. In an instant dozens of sword blade storms, sword light vortexes, and sword rain poured down from the sky and were about to drown everyone. Everyone felt a great pressure and a strong sense of impending death. Their expressions immediately became much more serious. Especially the 3 elders of the Taotai clan and the 20 elites of the Bloodbath Hall. They seemed as if they were facing a great enemy, and dense worry surged out from their eyes. They didn't have the confidence to block the sword light that blotted out the sky. Tao Yongxing did not dare to be careless. He hurriedly took out the primordial chaos spell and suspended it above his head. Furthermore, he shouted in a solemn tone, "Everyone be careful. This sword formation is extraordinarily powerful. We must not be careless." He had witnessed the power of the heaven-destroying sword formation when he was at the Starry Cliff in the star-devouring grotto heaven. At that time, if it wasn't for the protection of the primordial chaos spell, the elders would have been seriously injured even if they didn't die. Even he himself might not have been able to escape unscathed. The Grand Priest Tao Yuxing and the 2 elders of the Taotai clan did not need his reminder. They were extremely cautious as they went all out to deal with the sword light that blotted out the sky. As for Xianxia and the Right Guardian, they were not too vigilant. Humph, it's just a sword formation that looks extravagant. What's there to be afraid of? He only has a few hours at most to set up this sword formation. How powerful can it be? Xianxia snorted disdainfully as he looked at the sword light vortexes that descended from the sky. He charged forward bravely and swung his fists to throw out 2 fist shadows that were the size of mountains. He wanted to destroy the sword light vortexes in front of everyone without using any divine weapons. In this way he could not only display his bravery and the strength of the Xianxia clan, but he could also fiercely intimidate Ji Tianxing. The Right Guardian and the 20 elites of the Bloodbath Hall saw the Taotai clan's supreme gods in a defensive posture as if they were facing a great enemy. Their clan leader charged forward bravely. Instantly they felt their blood boiling as pride and anticipation welled up in their hearts. If they were not fighting a great battle, they would definitely take the opportunity to mock the Taotai clan's supreme gods. "Ah, look at how timid you are. What a bunch of cowards. Look at how valiant our clan leader is. Just as this thought flashed through everyone's minds, Xianxia had already collided with the sword light vortexes. Boom. Crack. Amidst the deafening loud noise, the two fist shadows that Xianxia threw out smashed the sword light vortexes. Even though the two fist shadows were also smashed and turned into divine light fragments that scattered in all directions. However, the sword light vortexes being destroyed by Xianxia in one move still greatly boosted the Xianxia clan's morale. Looking at the Taotai clan again, they actually hid around Tao Yongxing. Meanwhile, Tao Yongxing cast a spell to activate the primordial chaos spell, causing it to expand to a radius of 100,000 feet. It was like a huge shield that protected him and the Taotai clan's elders. Bam, 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 bam. 7 sword light vortexes and sword rain came down one after another, but they were all blocked by the primordial chaos spell. Everyone was unharmed. Even though they were unharmed, they all lowered their heads and felt ashamed. Their old faces were burning. After all, the Xianxia clan's right guardian and the elites of the blood slaughter hall were looking at them with cold smiles and disdain. Even if they didn't say anything, the Taotai clan's people felt very embarrassed. The high priest hesitated and sent a voice transmission to Tao Yongxing. Clan leader, we can't hide in the primordial chaos spell. We will be laughed at by the Xianxia clan. Anyway, you and I don't fear the power of this sword formation. Why don't the two of us kill Long Tian? Use this primordial chaos spell to protect the 3 elders. Tao Yongxing thought for a moment and nodded. All right, then we will do as you say. Then he handed the primordial chaos spell to Tao Yongxing to control. He and the high priest both took out their divine weapons and charged out of the primordial chaos spell bravely but cautiously, attacking Zhi Tianqing high in the sky. Bam, bam, bam. Countless starry swords, sword light vortexes, and storms kept attacking the primordial chaos spell, but to no avail. The 3 elders of the Taotai clan stayed in the range of the primordial chaos spell and felt very safe. However, it was still embarrassing for them to hide under the primordial chaos spell while the others were fighting bravely. The 3 of them discussed in secret. When the power of the sword formation weakened, they would also charge out and fight Zhi Tianqing for a few hundred rounds. Only in this way would they not let today's battle become a disgrace to them. On the other side, Xianxia and the Right Guardian relied on their strength to charge wildly in the sky and destroy one ball of sword light after another. They locked onto Zhi Tianqing's aura and charged left and right in the sword rain, trying to get close to Zhi Tianqing. However, the 20 elites of the blood slaughter hall suffered a calamity and were quickly annihilated. Chapter 3646. The Right Guardian had given the elites of the Hall of Bloody Slaughter a king high-grade divine artifact to save their lives. It was an old and shabby 10,000 demon banner. It released a thick blood-red light that formed a light shield to protect everyone. However, the 10,000 demon banner needed divine power to unleash its power. The 20 elites of the Hall of Bloody Slaughter hid in the blood-red light shield. They focused on unleashing the 10,000 demon banner to maintain the blood-red light shield. Unfortunately, their strength was too weak. The blood-red light shield withstood the attacks of the 10,000 swords. In the blink of an eye, it was full of cracks. It was on the verge of shattering. The elites of the Hall of Bloody Slaughter were so scared that their faces turned pale. They unleashed their divine power to control the 10,000 demon banner to repair the cracks on the shield. Unfortunately, the 10,000 demon banner was the Right Guardian's natal divine artifact. They rarely touched it or used it. They only knew the basic control chants of the 10,000 demon banner. They couldn't unleash the power of the 10,000 demon banner, nor could they perform profound and high-end operations. Therefore they soon met with a tragedy. Kaboom! Crack, crack, crack. When the rain of swords came again, the blood-red light shield that was full of cracks couldn't withstand it anymore. It was smashed into pieces and fell apart. Countless blood-red fragments of divine light splashed in all directions. The 20 elites of the Hall of Bloody Slaughter were also drowned by the rain of swords. They let out heart-wrenching cries of despair. Ah! Almost every elite of the Hall of Bloody Slaughter was hit by dozens of giant swords. Their bodies were blasted into smithereens, and their godheads were also shattered into dregs. They were truly annihilated. In the blink of an eye, the 20 elites of the Blood Slaughter Hall were all dead. Not a single one was spared. Their cries were still echoing in the sky, but they were soon drowned out by the deafening explosions. High up in the sky, the 4LV9 Divine King Realm experts broke through all the obstacles and destroyed dozens of sword light whirlpools and storms. Finally, they surrounded Ji Tianxing. Even though Ji Tianxing dashed left and right, fleeing at top speed and even using his teleportation divine ability, Ji Tianxing still couldn't escape. However, his strength was somewhat weak and he seemed to be lacking in strength. Soon he was heavily surrounded. Xianxia, the right guardian Tao Yongxing and the high priest stood in 4 different directions, staring at him with murderous eyes. They grinned cruelly. I've already said this long ago. What bullshit sword formation? It's all flashy stuff. In front of absolute strength, these are all jokes. Xianxia sneered with a ferocious face. His hands returned to the original shape of the Qiong cheese claws, sparkling with a cold light. Tao Yongxing also grinned coldly and said in a mocking tone, Long Tian, you are indeed heavily injured and weak. Don't you have a few guards around you? Why didn't you call them to protect you? This is your last chance. If you don't make them show themselves, you will die. Actually, he was somewhat anxious when he didn't see Bai Feng, Chao Qingyu, Yank and Peng Fei. He knew that these guards must be in Ji Tianxing's personal divine artifact. If he killed Ji Tianxing like this, then Ji Tianxing's corpse, godhead and divine artifact would all belong to Xianxia. He wouldn't be able to get any benefits. Previously, he had already discussed the terms with Xianxia. Other than Ji Tianxing's corpse, godhead and equipment, everything else would belong to him. In that case, he could at least get the Phoenix bloodline and the Golden Rock bloodline to comfort himself. Ji Tianxing, who was surrounded by 4 people, was obviously weak, but he still pretended to be calm. This sword formation is enough to deal with you. I don't need any guards at all. After saying that, he waved the Burial of Heaven sword and slashed out a dazzling sword light toward the weakest high priest in an attempt to break out of the encirclement. The high priest was used as a breakthrough point and he was quite angry. Originally, he would avoid the attack and cast a spell to stop Ji Tianxing. For the sake of his dignity and face, he chose to fight head-on and not give an inch. Invincible blood slash. The high priest roared angrily and waved the blood-red divine sword with both hands, splashing out a sky full of sword shadows to attack. Bam, bam, bam. The blood-red sword light collided with the sky full of sword light, and there was a deafening explosion. Suddenly, the sword light and the sword light collapsed at the same time, exploding into fragments of divine light. The violent impact and the dozens of starry giant swords that took the opportunity to attack fiercely sent the high priest flying. Puff. While he was still flying in the air, his face was distorted and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Although the high priest's injuries were not serious and did not affect his ability to continue fighting, he was sent flying. Ji Tianxing took the opportunity to rush out of the encirclement and escape the heaven-destroying sword formation. This sword formation was set up by him so he could enter and leave at will. Xianxia, Tao Yongxing and the others could not. Once he left the heaven-destroying sword formation, if they wanted to chase after him, they would have to cast a spell to break the sword formation. In that case, it would take at least 2 hours. Where could they find him? This thought flashed through the minds of Xianxia, Tao Yongxing and the right guardian at the same time, and they became anxious. Stop him, we can't let him escape. We can't let him escape from the sword formation. Otherwise, it will be difficult for us to catch up with him. Don't hold back anymore, don't fail miserably. The 3 of them roared at the same time and exploded with their fastest speed. They used their ultimate killer moves and attacked Ji Tianxing at the same time. Death Sword of Heavenly Sun. Million Slaughter of Blood Sea. 9 Heavens Dark Sky Attack. Along with the 3 people's angry roars, 3 extremely powerful secret techniques shone with a divine light that was even more dazzling than the scorching sun, engulfing Ji Tianxing's figure. Boom, 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 boom. In the sky full of sword light and blood light, Ji Tianxing was hit by the 3 divine powers and the protective divine light shattered on the spot. Then the armor that he was wearing shattered into pieces and countless pieces fell to the ground. Then his body exploded with a bang and turned into charred pieces that filled the sky and splashed out in all directions. The pitch-black pieces mixed with the divine light and chi waves and swiftly swept across thousands of miles, filling the entire heaven punishment sword formation. In the blink of an eye, the sky regained its clarity. Xianxia, Tao Yongxing, the high priest and the right guardian all looked at the sky in shock. It was empty in front of everyone. Ji Tianxing no longer existed. The four of them had complicated expressions and they were all stunned and stunned. It's over just like that? He's killed just like that? That's not right. Even if he's seriously injured and his power is greatly reduced, he shouldn't be so weak, right? Everyone, don't think too much. Although he killed several upper-level god kings earlier, he's not a peak god king and he's seriously injured. We're all 9th stage realm god kings, so it's natural for us to join forces and kill him. Hearing the right guardian's analysis, everyone felt that it made sense. But when Xianxia regained his senses, he was filled with rage as he roared with a black face. Bastard! Tao Yongxing! You despicable villain! You blasted him into dregs, crushed his bones and scattered his ashes. Where will this seat go to find the dragon clan's bloodline? Tao Yongxing's expression stiffened and was about to explain. Suddenly, the high priest and right guardian's bodies stiffened and without any warning, they opened their mouths and spat out a large mouthful of foul blood. The two of them seemed to have understood something and instantly opened their eyes wide, revealing an intense horror. Wrong. This Long Tian is fake. There's a trap in here, we've fallen into a trap again. The two of them cried out in shock at the same time as their bodies started to tremble. Their faces also turned pale as bean-sized beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads. Seeing their reaction, Xianxia and Tao Yongxing were filled with vigilance as they hurriedly asked, "What's going on? Why did the two of you?" Without waiting for the high priest and right guardian to answer, Xianxia's body also trembled and suddenly his vision turned black. He only felt the god power in his body surging violently. His god blood was almost burning and his consciousness also became blurry. "There's poison," he subconsciously shouted. Chapter 3651. After a while, Tao Yongxing's aura weakened. Now he was trapped in the heaven-destroying sword formation, and the high priest and 3 elders under him were killed. Not only did he not have any help, but he also did not have the confidence to fight Zhi Tianxing head-on. He did not even know if he could break the sword formation and escape. He really did not have the qualifications or the confidence to threaten Zhi Tianxing. If Zhi Tianxing really wanted to destroy the star-devouring cave, he could only go crazy in the sword formation and was powerless to stop it. So he suddenly regretted that he should have thought about those ruthless words in his heart and never shouted them out in front of his face. It was too wrong, too stupid. Seeing that Tao Yongxing had suddenly become dispirited and seemed to have given up, Zhi Tianxing revealed a regretful expression. "What? Weren't you full of murderous intent just now, threatening to make me pay back 10 times, 100 times? Tao Yongxing lowered his head and did not look him in the eyes. He was full of anger and did not say a word. But his fists were clenched tightly in his sleeves and his nails pierced into his palms. It was obvious that he was furious. Zhi Tianxing raised his eyebrows and said expressionlessly, "Although I am very interested in those mineral veins in the star-devouring cave, the heavens have mercy. However, the heavens have the virtue of cherishing life, and this prince is not a bloodthirsty person. Tao Yongxing, I'll give you one last chance. Admit your guilt and surrender to me now, apologize and swear in the name of the heavenly Tao that the Tao Tai clan will not take revenge on me. Only then will I spare your life and spare the Tao Tai clan's life." Tao Yongxing subconsciously raised his head and glared at Zhi Tianxing. He was about to reject this extremely humiliating request. However, the curses that he was about to blurt out were forcefully swallowed back down. He had already suffered so many losses and he had learned to be smart. Zhi Tianxing just said that this was the last chance. Although in Tao Yongxing's eyes he was sinister, despicable, cruel and vicious. But there was one thing that he had to admit: he was a man of his words. So Tao Yongxing did not dare to be impulsive and he did not dare to gamble the fate of the Tao Tai clan. He suppressed the anger and humiliation in his heart and clenched his fists so tightly that they creaked. He was hesitating and weighing the pros and cons in his heart. Zhi Tianxing did not force him. He said in an indifferent tone, "You have 10 breaths of time to consider. Think carefully before you make a decision." After saying this, he looked at the Xianxia skeleton not far away and his gaze fell on Xianxia. "Patriarch Xianxia, it's time for you to make a decision." Xianxia looked at him expressionlessly. He shook his head and said, "Long Tian, you have already taken the initiative. You have to pay 300 billion worth of ores first, so that I can use them to comfort my clan members and arrange the funeral of the left protector and the 3 elders. As for the other 2 conditions, I can be generous and give you some time. You are looting a burning house. Tao Yongxing glared at him and shouted angrily, my clan's high priest and several elders have just died, and thousands of clan members and elites have just died. At this sad moment, as an ally of my clan, you not only don't understand and comfort us, but also take the opportunity to blackmail us. Zhou Xian. Has your conscience been eaten by a dog? I was really blind in the past to form an alliance with you and treat you as a reliable ally. Tao Yongxing was extremely angry and emotional. His face was distorted and his beard and hair were dancing violently. Seeing him like this, Zhou Xian quickly waved his hand and explained. However, he thought in his heart, this old man has been hiding from me before. I didn't expect that when Long Tian caused havoc in the star-devouring grotto heaven, he had already killed thousands of Tao Tai clansmen. No wonder Tao Yongxing paid such a huge price to ask me for help. In this way, there are not many Tao Tai clansmen left, and their core forces have been severely damaged. Now they are almost crippled. Even if I don't get any rewards, I can still take over their properties and plunder their wealth. Thinking of this, Zhou Xian sneered in his heart and gradually perfected the next plan. They felt that it was necessary to contact the Myriad Demon Alliance's Alliance Master, God King Luoho. However, they did not know God King Rahu, nor did they have God King Rahu's transmission Jade Slip. After discussing for a while, Zhou Xian and Tao Yongxing unanimously decided to send a message to the Great Elder of the 10,000 Demon League to explain the matter. God Divine King Luoho was God. Therefore Tao Yongxing prepared to send a message to the Grand Elder of the Demon Alliance. Zhou Xian stretched out his hand to stop him. He frowned and said, Old Tao, even if we want to plan this, can't we break this sword formation first? Inside the sword formation, you and I have to circulate our divine power at all times to resist the sword light's attack. Moreover, you and I have both been poisoned by the innate fiend soul transference poison, and the right protector is still circulating his energy to resist the poison. If we don't leave the sword formation soon, the poison will break out. Our lives will be in danger then. Tao Yongxing was stunned. He looked at the sword light and nodded. Hey, you're right. Let's break the sword formation first. But it's a king-grade god formation. You and I are not good at formations. I'm afraid it will take a long time to break it. Even if it takes a long time, we have to get out first. Zhou Xian was very anxious. He looked impatient. Tao Yongxing could not fall out with Zhou Xian for the sake of his revenge plan. He could only endure his irritation and agree to break the formation first. Then he put away the communication jade slip and worked with Zhou Xian to break the sword formation. The two flew hundreds of laps around the sword formation and used their secret arts to observe the structure of the sword formation. This was only the first step of breaking the sword formation, but it took them an entire day. Tao Yongxing was impatient. He planned to let Zhou Xian observe the sword formation while he contacted the Thousand Demon Alliance. Fortunately, after a day, Zhou Xian finally understood the structure of the sword formation. Then he and Tao Yongxing worked hard to figure out how to break the formation. This was the second step of breaking the formation. It took them another 2 days. Tao Yongxing became more and more anxious. He was exhausted. Fortunately, Zhou Xian thought of 3 ways to break the formation and they all seemed to work. So he pulled Tao Yongxing and started to cast spells to break the formation. This was the 3rd step of breaking the formation. It was the last step and also the most difficult step. The two of them tried their best and used all their skills. They spent 3 days, but still could not break the formation. Zhou Xian had tried all 3 methods but none of them could be broken. Tao Yongxing was angry. They spent almost all of their time cultivating in the distorted space-time, desperately improving their strength. Even if there were times when he was tired from training and encountered bottlenecks and shackles, he could only move around in the distorted space-time and communicate with others and confide in them. This was because Ji Tianqing had once said that only when they reached the God King realm would they have the qualifications to roam the God world. And now they were not far from the Divine King realm. As for the Zhenhong who improved the slowest, he also reached peak 8th level Divine Lord and was still silently working hard. The 3rd piece of good news was that Ji Ku Yunyao and Lon had all broken through. Lon, Had been stuck at the first tier of the Divine King realm for many years. She then cultivated in the distorted space for dozens of years before she successfully broke through to the second tier of the Divine King realm. But Jiku and Yunyao were different. They were already at the third level of the God King realm. Both of them had their own fortuitous encounters and inheritances, except for the time when they were trying to break through to the God King realm. After reaching the God King realm, they no longer had any restrictions or bottlenecks, and their strength soared all the way. Such an exaggerated speed of improvement gave even Ji Tianqing a shock, let alone Chao Qingyu and Yang. These two people's improvement was relatively slow, and they had not broken through yet. However, they were not in a hurry and felt that it was normal. Which God King powerhouse in this world did not spend hundreds or thousands of years before they could break through to the next tier. Only Ji Tianqing's family was not normal, and that was why they were so terrifying. After checking on everyone's situation, Ji Tianqing went to visit Peng Fei and Bai Feng. These two people had been circulating their energy to recuperate for so long, and their injuries had mostly recovered. They were still recuperating in peace. Ji Tianqing did not disturb them. After secretly checking on the situation, he quietly left. Next, he used divine telekinesis voice transmission to converse with buried heaven. Burial of heaven, where are we now? Burial of heaven's voice quickly sounded in his mind. We just entered the freezing pine region today, and we are still far from the 9 mystical caves heaven. We still need about half a month. The situation was in line with Ji Tianqing's expectations. He asked again, have there been any abnormalities in the past few days? Burial of heaven was silent for a moment, then answered, when we passed by the cities of the various regions and empires, we heard some rumors. The God King powerhouses of the surrounding regions have all appeared recently, as if they are looking for something. There are also many top factions that have sent large groups of powerhouses to search for something. This brat used all his tricks to evade the encirclement and interception of countless forces and experts, but in the end he still fell into our hands. Perhaps this is his fate. The stocky God King of the bear race sneered coldly and said in a low, muffled voice, it was not in vain that we used the entire sect's manpower and spent hundreds of millions of resources to buy this crucial piece of information. We will soon see the returns. It was obvious that these 3 God Kings were elders of the Scorching Sun sect. Their leader, the God race male wearing black armor and carrying a divine hammer on his back, was the Scorching Sun sect's sect master. The Scorching Sun sect master did not show any signs of complacency when he heard the 3's praises. He carefully examined the sword of burial of heaven for a moment before saying in a low voice, the appearance, details, and aura of this sword are the same as described in the bounty. This should be Long Tian's sword. Long Tian should be hiding in this sword. I didn't think that this brat would be as arrogant as the rumors say. He offended the 10,000 Demon Alliance and revealed his sword, but he did not hide it and even used this sword to travel. How confident. When the 3 God Kings heard this, they were about to mock and ridicule him. However, the Scorching Sun sect master said with a serious expression, from this, it can be seen that this Long Tian's strength and methods are extraordinary. Furthermore, someone who dares to offend the 10,000 Demon Alliance must be a peak expert. Everyone, do not let down your guard. Treat this with caution. The 3 God Kings hurriedly put away their joking expressions and cupped their hands together in obeisance. At this moment, Ji Tianqing, who was in the sword world, heard the conversation between the Scorching Sun sect master and the 3 God Kings clearly. He immediately frowned as a cold light flashed through his eyes. Scorching Sun sect? 10,000 Demon Alliance? Bounty? Naturally, he understood the meaning of the words bounty. However, he had never heard of the Scorching Sun sect or the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Thus, he hurriedly used his consciousness to contact Peng Fei, who was recuperating in the Divine Tower, and asked about the 10,000 Demon Alliance's history and background. Peng Fei was focused on recuperating when he suddenly heard Ji Tianqing's voice and the words, 10,000 Demon Alliance. He immediately woke up. Senior, didn't we have a grudge with the Xianxia and Taotai clans? Why is the 10,000 Demon Alliance involved? When did you offend the 10,000 Demon Alliance? The 10,000 Demon Alliance is one of the top super forces in the Starsource continent. They have peak God Kings. Peng Fei's tone was filled with shock and deep worry. Evidently, the 10,000 Demon Alliance was extremely famous. Chapter 3660. The Broken Sun sect master and the three elders didn't act rashly. They surrounded the Sword of Burial of Heaven and waited for Ji Tianxing to show himself. At the same time, they secretly used divine powers and secret techniques to form a sealing array that sealed off the area within 10,000 miles. This way they could block out divine sense and seal off all movement and shadows. Not only did they have to kill Ji Tianxing, but they also had to guard against other forces who saw the abnormality and came to interfere. Only the Broken Sun sect could do this. Soon, the sealing formation was completed, and the time it took for an incense stick to burn had passed. The Sword of Burial of Heaven still didn't move. Ji Tianxing still didn't show himself. The three elders couldn't wait any longer. They told the Broken Sun sect master to destroy the sword immediately. The Broken Sun sect master was about to nod. At this moment, a white light flashed across the Sword of Burial of Heaven. A young man from the dragon tribe in a white robe finally appeared in the sky, his entire body radiating golden light. Whoosh! He stood proudly with the Sword of Burial of Heaven in his right hand. He glanced at the Broken Sun sect master and the others and smiled coldly. The Xianxia and Taotai races were bullied and didn't dare to take revenge, so they asked the 10,000 Beast Alliance for help and even issued a bounty? The Broken Sun sect master and the three elders were stunned when they saw that Ji Tianxing was unharmed and had a powerful aura and mysterious strength. Immediately after, they all took out their divine weapons and stared at Ji Tianxing with vigilance. Even though they said it casually, they were just trying to encourage themselves. They knew that Long Tian was very strong and they had to fight him with all their might. The Broken Sun sect master stared at Long Tian and asked, "If that's the case, do you admit that you're Long Tian?" Ji Tianxing sneered calmly. "That's right. I'm Long Tian. Why wouldn't I admit it?" The Broken Sun sect master nodded. "Very good. Even though we want to kill you, I still have to say that you're very courageous." Ji Tianxing didn't want to waste time with him. He said in a deep voice, "Let me see the bounty of the Myriad Demon Alliance." The sect master of the Scorching Sun sect sneered, "After I kill you, I'll take the bounty to the 10,000 Demon Alliance. How can I show it to you?" Ji Tianxing frowned and asked again, "How much is the bounty of the Myriad Demon Alliance?" The tiger race divine king curled his mouth and said with a cold laugh, "You brat, your death is at hand and you're actually still concerned about the price of the bounty? 2 king-grade high-grade divine artifacts and 50 billion divine stones. If I grind your bones to dust, I'll add another 5 billion god stones. Kid, this is the most expensive bounty in the last few hundred years. You should be proud that you were killed today." Ji Tianxing frowned and was silent. He thought to himself, "I have no grudge against the Myriad Demon Alliance. They can't possibly offer so much wealth as a bounty for me. Tao Yongxing must have asked the 10,000 Demon Alliance for help because he hates me so much. I thought I could force them to swear a heavenly oath and this would be the end of the matter. I didn't expect Tao Yongxing to keep pestering me. He didn't dare to take revenge himself, so he used such a despicable method. If I knew this would happen, I would have been ruthless and destroyed the star-devouring cave." The sect master of the Scorching Sun sect and the 3 divine kings saw his gloomy face in silence. They immediately grinned coldly. Kid, now you know fear? To tell you the truth, the bounty of the Myriad Demon Alliance has spread throughout the 32 northwestern regions. Right now, there are at least a few dozen top forces and more than 100 God King experts who are trying to kill you. However, you have nothing to worry about. Those forces and experts won't have a chance. Just die under our blades and everything will be over. As they spoke, the 4 experts revealed sinister sneers as they raised their swords and sabers one after another. The 30 or so god monarchs around them also crazily gathered their divine power and surged with murderous intent. A great battle was about to break out. Ji Tianxing stood with his sword in hand as he sneered mockingly, "The Scorching Sun sect. I've never heard of this name before. It must be a sect that has risen in the past 1,000 years, right? There shouldn't be many sects of this scale and foundation on the Star Source continent. A top force is willing to sacrifice the future of their entire sect for a mere 50 billion god stones and 2 high king-grade divine artifacts. Don't you want to reconsider?" Hearing this, the sect master of the Scorching Sun sect and the 3 elders were stunned. Then the 3 elders laughed as if they had heard the funniest joke in the world. If you're afraid of death, just admit defeat and surrender. Why do you have to be so tactful? You're about to die and you're still putting on airs? If we kill you, not only will we be able to easily obtain resources and treasures worth hundreds of billions, we'll also be favored by the 10,000 Demon Alliance. This is definitely a great deal. Alright Longtian, let's cut the crap. We'll send you on your way now. The Scorching Sun sect was a rather famous top force in the northwestern region. It was a pity that it was still a small shrimp compared to the behemoth that was the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Treasures and treasures worth hundreds of billions were tempting. However, winning the favor and support of the 10,000 Demon Alliance was what the Scorching Sun sect wanted the most. Kill him. The sect master of the Scorching Sun sect waved his sleeves and raised his hammer as he gave the order. Instantly, over 30 Sir God powerhouses brandished their weapons without any regard for their own safety. They used all sorts of divine abilities and ultimate skills to besiege Zhi Tianxing. The sect master of the Scorching Sun sect and the three elders held their weapons tightly and were ready to attack. Once Zhi Tianxing was fighting with the god monarchs and revealed even the slightest flaw, they would launch a thunderous attack. However, they miscalculated. Zhi Tianxing didn't move at all as the divine lords charged at him. Even though the sky was filled with divine light and shadows, he didn't even look at them. Even when the divine lords were close, he didn't draw his sword. He only smiled disdainfully. Buzz. An invisible divine soul power suddenly burst out of his body and turned into transparent ripples that spread in all directions. Bang 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 bang. In the next moment, an invisible divine soul shockwave swept out in all directions, striking more than 30 divine lord experts. Following a series of muffled sounds, the bodies of the 30-odd Sir Gods shook violently. Their heads exploded and blood splattered everywhere. They didn't even have time to scream before their divine souls were destroyed and their divine heads shattered. They died on the spot. Plop, plop. More than 30 divine lords fell from the sky like dumplings, causing the ground to shake and dust to fly everywhere. It was only at this moment that the divine arts that were falling from the sky landed on Zhi Tianxing's body one after another. The surface of his body glowed with a faint golden light, which condensed into a transparent light shield. Despite being bombarded by dozens of divine light shadows, the light shield remained unaffected, not even the slightest bit affected. Just like that, Zhi Tianxing stood where he was without moving. He didn't even lift a finger and instantly killed more than 30 Sir Gods. The sect master of the Scorching Sun sect and the three elders widened their eyes in shock. Chapter 3661. He's actually so valiant. Our sect's 30 over elites. He didn't even lift a finger and they were all killed? This lad is indeed terrifying. The three elders' expressions changed drastically as they gulped and their hearts were filled with terror. They were also God King experts and each of them had the ability and means to kill 30 over God monarchs. But they had to go through a bloody battle and at least display a few moves before they could do it. On the other hand, Zhi Tianxing didn't even lift a finger or unsheath his sword. Just a single soul attack was enough to kill 30 over God monarchs. Such ability and means were extremely terrifying. In an instant, sect master and the three elders were stunned as they forgot to attack. Especially the three elders. Their backs were drenched in cold sweat as they suddenly regretted accepting this mission. At this moment, Zhi Tianxing looked at them with a smile and opened his mouth. Originally, you guys were here to kill this king and this battle was baffling. But since you insist on sending yourselves to your deaths, how can this king not grant you your wish? 1 7th stage realm, 3 6th stage realm. Although the quality isn't good, but it's still not bad. It's comparable to 100 years of cultivation. As he said that, he slowly raised the sword of burial of heaven as he started to accumulate god power in his body. Sect master and the three elders instantly panicked as their gazes darted around and their hearts trembled. The clumsy Bear Clan elder couldn't help but ask, "The quality isn't good and it's comparable to 100 years of cultivation? What does he mean?" Wolf Clan elder's gaze was chilly as he said in a low voice, "Perhaps he wants to eat us and absorb our powers?" Tiger Clan elder cursed angrily, "This bastard, how dare he belittle us? Just 100 years of cultivation? We've all cultivated for tens of thousands of years." Without waiting for Tiger Clan elder to finish his words, Zhi Tianxing had already made his move. Heavenly Dragon World / Dragon Elephant God Fist. Zhi Tianxing suddenly took a step forward as his left fist punched out a huge dragon elephant image while his right hand slashed out 1,000 feet long golden dragon sword light. In an instant, the roars of dragons and tigers exploded in the sky, deafening everyone. The ferocious dragon-elephant fist contained the divine power of 300 laws, and it instantly enveloped the cruel sun sect master along with the divine patterns and shadows of laws. As for the thousand-zhang-long saber light that resembled the roar of a golden dragon, it unleashed a might that could cleave apart the heavens and earth as it slashed towards the tiger god king. Boom! With a thunderous boom, the cruel sun sect master was the first to be sent flying. Chapter 3662. Ah! The scorching sun sect master was dumbfounded. He stared at Ji Tianxing in a daze, not understanding what he meant. Even though he had witnessed and experienced Ji Tianxing's terrifying strength with his own eyes, he was still shocked. However, he still could not understand why Ji Tianxing would expose himself and attract the attention of countless factions and experts. Was this guy tired of living? It seemed like he had just said that they knew where he was, which was why they kept coming to their deaths. The scorching sun sect master's body trembled when he thought of this, and unparalleled fear surged out of his heart. Heavens! He's actually so arrogant. At this moment, the scorching sun sect master suddenly understood Ji Tianxing's intentions. He was not seeking his own death. He wanted to lure all the factions and experts over and kill them all. Madman. This Long Tian was definitely a madman. The scorching sun sect master roared in his heart. His mind and body were filled with fear and he trembled. Out of instinct, he wanted to shake his head and refuse. However, the bone-chilling killing intent from the pitch-black sword beside his neck cleared his mind. He knew very well what would happen if he didn't do as he was told. Thus, he took out a communication jade slip with trembling hands and sent a message to an elder of the 10,000 Demon Alliance to report the details. After sending the message, he seemed to feel that it was not enough. He took out a few more communication jade slips and sent messages to the other factions. This way, the news that he and the three elders had tried to kill Long Tian but were killed instead would quickly spread. Out of selfishness and ulterior motives, he even said in the communication jade slip that Long Tian had also been severely injured and was fleeing north. After he sent the message, Ji Tianxing's cold voice sounded in his ears again. You lied that I was severely injured and was fleeing north because you wanted those factions to hurry over so that I could kill them one by one. This way, many factions in the northwestern regions would be heavily injured. Even if you were killed and the scorching sun sect's strength was greatly weakened, at least we would have a chance to breathe and not be swallowed up by those factions. Hearing this cold and indifferent voice, the setting sun sect master's body stiffened and his expression became rather ugly. After a moment of silence, he smiled bitterly and said, "As expected, I can't hide anything from you. But this won't do you any harm and it won't affect your plan, will it?" Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said expressionlessly, "That's right. To be precise, what you are doing is equivalent to helping this prince." The setting sun sect master immediately became excited. Joy appeared on his face as he said with anticipation, "Long Tian, I've already guessed your plan and believe in your strength. As long as you spare my life, I will cooperate fully with you. Whether it's acting or helping you deceive others, I can." Evidently, the cruel sun sect master's desire to live was very strong. He would not let go of any chance of survival. However, Ji Tianxing decisively rejected him. No need. With that, he did not give the sect master of the cruel sun sect a chance to speak. The sword of burial of heaven suddenly shone with resplendent light. Chua! Blood splattered as the setting sun sect master's head flew into the sky. His eyes were still wide open. After destroying the setting sun sect master's body, the sword of burial of heaven unleashed another resplendent beam of sword light. Bang! The setting sun sect master's head exploded. His godhead also shattered and fell from the sky. Ji Tianxing waved his hand and sent out two beams of golden light that swept away the setting sun sect master's godhead fragments and interspatial ring. Then he returned to the ceiling formation and took away the godhead fragments and interspatial rings of the three elders. After obtaining his spoils of war, he did not clean up the battlefield. Instead, he flew away on the sword of burial of heaven. He did not change his route and continued to advance north. He did not change his method of travel. The sword of burial of heaven still flew high in the sky. He entered the sword world again and returned to the distorted spacetime to deal with his spoils of war. In just 4 hours he finished counting his spoils of war. The Setting Sun Sect Master and the three elders all had vast amounts of cultivation resources and treasures in their interspatial rings. Unfortunately, there was only one upper king level material and treasure. Even king grade pills, materials and treasures were not many in number. There were only a few hundred of them. Fortunately, the four god kings had stored enough god stones and materials, which comforted Ji Tianxing. He couldn't help but grumble as he stored all of their belongings into his spatial ring. The Setting Sun Sect Master and the three elders have less than 1 trillion in total. That's too shabby. Will they be attracted by the 100 billion reward and come out to kill me? Although Ji Tianxing was a bit disappointed by the wealth and resources worth 1 trillion. However, the four godhead fragments could provide him with 100 years of cultivation, which was a bit comforting. After counting his spoils of war, he refined the four godhead fragments and absorbed their god power and divine Tao laws. He was full of anticipation for the forces that were about to swarm him. Originally, he didn't want to start a massacre. However, he was entangled with all kinds of grudges. Countless forces and experts were trying to kill him by any means necessary. Since that was the case, he could only turn trash into treasure and make the experts become his resources. The Setting Sun Sect Master's message quickly spread among the 10,000 Demon Alliance and countless forces. If the Setting Sun Sect Master had only sent a message to the 10,000 Demon Alliance, perhaps the 10,000 Demon Alliance would have kept it a secret and secretly sold this information to make a fortune. However, the Setting Sun Sect Master had sent a message to many forces, and the news quickly spread. The 10,000 Demon Alliance could not hide it even if they wanted to. In just one day, 70 to 80 forces and over 100 god kings knew about Long Tian's whereabouts and the news of the Setting Sun Sect Master and the others being killed. Although many people were shocked by Long Tian's strength and ability to kill the Setting Sun Sect Master and the three elders, they did not fear or retreat. However, they didn't shrink back because of this, and they became even more enthusiastic and excited instead. All of them rushed towards Freezing Pine region at their fastest speed to kill Long Tian. This was because many forces and experts believed that they were stronger than the Setting Sun Sect. Long Tian could kill the four god kings of the Setting Sun Sect, but he definitely could not kill them. Even those who were weaker than the Setting Sun Sect rushed to the Freezing Pine territory to claim the credit. The Setting Sun Sect Master had clearly revealed a piece of information. Although the three elders were killed, he was definitely going to die as well. However, Long Tian's fate was also very bad. He was heavily injured and weak. This piece of information was extremely important. Many forces that were hesitating and watching in the dark joined the army to kill Long Tian. For a time, the entire northwestern region was in chaos. Over 100 forces and close to 200 god kings moved. Everyone rode their divine ships, mounts, and various divine artifacts to the Freezing Pine territory. They were afraid that others would beat them to it. Those who participated in the assassination thought about the reward worth hundreds of billions and the praise and favor of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. No one knew what awaited them. His gaze fell on the 5 god kings and sized them up expressionlessly. 2 high-level god kings and 3 mid-level god kings. Not bad, this is interesting. Ji Tianxing muttered to himself and thought, if these people are from the same faction, then this faction should be one of the top in the Starsource continent. Even if they are not as strong as the 10,000 Demon Alliance, they should at least be one of the top factions in the Northwest, one level higher than the Broken Sun Sect. In fact, he had guessed correctly. The leader of the Moon Rhinoceros clan's god king stared coldly at Ji Tianxing. He said in a deep voice, Long Tian, your whereabouts have already been grasped by countless forces. Who knows how many god king experts are hunting you down? You are alone and heavily injured. You will die without a doubt. Don't make any meaningless struggles and resistance. Accept your death obediently. This credit belongs only to our Pil Sun Palace. This Moon Rhinoceros God King was the Vice Palace Master of the Pil Sun Palace and the second strongest person in the sect. His tone was full of confidence. The other 4 God Kings were also full of confidence. They looked at Ji Tianxing as if they were looking at a dead man. Ji Tianxing disdained to refute and was too lazy to explain anything. He did not waste any time and used his ultimate skill again to attack the people of the Pil Sun Palace. Absolute shadows of the 10 directions. With a cold shout, his body lit up with a dazzling white light and 6 doppelgangers appeared around him. In the next moment he and the 6 doppelgangers waved the Sword of Burial of Heaven and used different ultimate skills to attack. Heavenly Dragon Palm. Heavenly Dragon Slash. Blade of Space-Time. Sky-Piercing Finger. Sword of Daytime. Suddenly, a dazzling 5-colored divine light illuminated the world. The destructive sword light and the divine power of hundreds of laws poured down on the people of the Pil Sun Palace. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 3664. The 36 Divine Lords of the Pil Sun Palace were all battle-hardened elites. They immediately formed a battle formation and jointly released their divine power to form a huge defensive shield. The 5 Divine Lords were also calm as they activated their divine weapons and magic treasures. They used all kinds of divine powers and secret techniques to neutralize and block Ji Tianqing's attacks. Even so, however, all of their efforts were futile and useless. The defensive light shield formed by the 36 gods was instantly shattered into pieces by the sword lights that filled the sky. Then they were also torn to pieces by the crisscrossing sword light. Blood splattered all over the sky. Then Ji Tianqing and the 6 doppelgangers' divine powers collided with the divine powers of the 5 divine lords, resulting in an earth-shattering explosion. In an instant the divine powers of the 5 divine lords were shattered. Fragments of divine light and shockwaves spread out in all directions. The 5 divine lords were all lightly injured and were pushed back thousands of feet or dozens of miles. Ji Tianqing and the 6 doppelgangers quickly caught up and attacked with all their might. The 5 divine lords were forcefully separated and could not join forces to fight back. It was difficult for them to exert more combat strength. Originally they had the advantage in numbers and were besieging Ji Tianqing alone. But now it was Ji Tianqing and the 6 doppelgangers who were besieging them. Even more ironic was that even if the doppelgangers were only half as strong as Ji Tianqing, the 5 divine lords could not defeat them. After 2 or 3 moves the 5 divine lords were defeated. They were killed one after another and their godheads were shattered. From the beginning of the battle, less than 20 breaths had passed and it was over. The loud explosion reverberated in the sky. The dazzling divine light soon dissipated. The 6 doppelgangers quickly picked up the godhead fragments and interspatial rings of the 5 divine lords and returned to Ji Tianqing. Then Ji Tianqing put away the spoils and the 6 doppelgangers. He returned to the sword world to deal with the spoils. The Sword of Burial of Heaven continued its journey and flew north as usual. In the next 3 days, the situation was just as Ji Tianqing had expected. He was either fighting with others or sorting out the spoils of war. There was almost no time for him to cultivate. Almost every few hours, the Sword of Burial of Heaven would be stopped by a group of assassins. Now Ji Tianqing's whereabouts and route had been known by countless forces. When the assassins arrived at the frigid pine region, they would often be able to wait for the hair to come out of a tree stump. Moreover, Ji Tianqing had been using the Sword of Burial of Heaven. He did not disguise or change. The heaven-burying sword's characteristics were very distinct. The divine king powerhouses of the various factions recognized it very easily. On the first day Ji Tianqing encountered 4 groups of assassins. Every group had different numbers and strengths. The smaller groups had 2 or 3 god kings while the larger groups had 6 or 7 god kings. The strongest ones were 7th stage realm upper-level god kings. The divine lords of God of Heaven divine lords were, of course, divine lords below divine king realm. No matter how many there were, Ji Tianqing ignored them. Ji Tianqing's method of dealing with these assassins was also very simple and crude. After meeting without saying a word, he directly created 6 clones and started killing. No group of assassins could withstand it. Not only could they not injure him at all, they did not even have the chance to escape. Just like this, Ji Tianqing killed his way to the north. On the second day, the divine lords of heaven divine lords who came to kill Ji Tianqing were clearly much smarter. Probably because those divine lords knew that Ji Tianqing killed many divine lords along the way, so they were very cautious. They would often set up traps, ambushes and god arrays in advance on Ji Tianqing's route, waiting for Ji Tianqing to walk right into the trap. The Sword of Burial of Heaven would make a preliminary judgment on those traps and ambushes. If there was no danger, simple and crude traps and ambushes, it would directly ignore them. Once it encountered a more advanced, complicated and dangerous ambush, it would sense the danger in advance and take a detour. Those assassins were helpless and could only take the initiative to charge out and intercept the Sword of Burial of Heaven. At this time Ji Tianqing would appear again and kill them easily. Just like this, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days passed. After 3 days, the Sword of Burial of Heaven left the Winter Pine region. At this time, Ji Tianxing had already killed 16 forces, about 70 divine kings and 400 divine lords. Those divine lords were negligible. He had already obtained more than 70 divine personas fragments, in addition to countless cultivation resources and treasures. With a rough estimate, the wealth of those 70 divine kings added up to more than 14 trillion. In addition to the cultivation resources and treasures in his interspatial ring, the total value was close to 20 trillion. Without a doubt, this was the moment in Ji Tianxing's life when he had the most resources and treasures. With such a large amount of cultivation resources, it was not only enough for him to recover to peak Divine King, but also for the people around him to cultivate to the Divine King realm. With such a large amount of cultivation resources, he could even establish a top sect in force. However, he knew that this was just the beginning. Currently, only a small portion of the divine kings he had killed were the territorial lords of the various regions and first-rate forces of the various regions. The true experts had yet to appear. Myriad Demon Alliance. It was the Myriad Demon Alliance that issued the bounty, but until now, no divine king from the Myriad Demon Alliance has taken action. I have already killed for 3 days, destroyed so many forces and killed so many divine kings. The Myriad Demon Alliance should have received the news and made a response. In the distorted space-time, Ji Tianxing sat cross-legged under the bloody flame sacred tree and silently calculated. From the beginning, he did not take the divine kings of the ordinary forces and the territorial lords of the various regions seriously. His target had always been the experts of the Myriad Demon Alliance. The current situation was just as Ji Tianxing expected. In 3 days he had destroyed 16 forces and killed more than 70 divine kings in the freezing pine region. The news had already spread throughout the various regions in the northwest. For a time, the various regions in the northwest were in a state of panic. Countless territorial lords and forces were terrified. Many forces that were lying in ambush on Ji Tianxing's path were so frightened that they lost their spirit and fled. The Azure Snow region was to the north of the freezing pine region. Originally, there were more than 30 forces lying in ambush in various parts of the Azure Snow region, waiting to kill Ji Tianxing. However, after the news spread, more than half of them fled overnight. Only a dozen or so forces were unwilling to leave. When the various forces received the bounty, they were mentally prepared and knew that Long Tian was very strong. However, no one knew how strong he was. Now they finally got the answer. He was an expert that they could not afford to offend. It was that simple. As for the dozen or so forces that were unwilling to leave, they were obviously divine kings with deep foundations and stronger strength. Among them, there were a dozen territorial lords and a few experts from top forces. They were unwilling to leave, but they would not act rashly. Forced by the situation, they actually contacted each other and discussed forming an alliance to deal with Long Tian together. There was also a rumor that the Myriad Demon Alliance was enraged and that a big shot had personally taken action to kill Long Tian. After all, the bounty was issued by the Myriad Demon Alliance. Long Tian was invincible and killed countless divine kings along the way, turning the various regions in the northwest upside down. The Myriad Demon Alliance had to take action to suppress him or their dignity would be lost. Chapter 3665. The news spread through various regions in the northwest, attracting the attention of many people. Countless forces and God King experts were looking forward to the battle between the experts of the Myriad Demon Alliance and Long Tian. Ji Tianxing, who was in the distorted space-time, counting the spoils of war and refining the Godhead fragments, didn't know about this for now. He only felt that it was a little strange. Ever since he killed the previous group of people, no one had made a move to kill him for an entire day. He was used to having a fierce battle every few hours. Suddenly it was quiet and smooth for an entire day. He was actually not used to it. The most important thing was, an entire day had passed in the outside world. He had already been in closed-door cultivation in the distorted space-time for 50 days. In these 50 days he refined 12 Godhead fragments. His strength continued to increase and the number of God Tao laws he had mastered increased. His strength had also increased by several times. My route hasn't changed and my whereabouts have been exposed to various forces. But all of a sudden no one came to kill me. Ji Tianxing temporarily stopped cultivating and sat cross-legged under the blood flame sacred tree, deep in thought. Looks like I've successfully deterred the other forces by killing so many forces previously. Most of them are terrified and don't dare to make a move to kill me. Of course, there's another possibility. The real experts are about to make a move. The current situation was basically in line with Ji Tianxing's expectations. He could also guess that the people who would make a move to kill him would most likely be Thousand Demon Alliance experts. However, he wasn't afraid or worried at all. With his current strength, even if he met a 9th stage God King expert, he would have the ability to fight. Even if a peak God King made a move, as long as it wasn't an ambush or a siege, even if he couldn't win, he had the ability to protect himself. In one day at most, the 10,000 Demon Alliance will show up. After coming to this conclusion, he didn't think about this matter anymore and continued to refine the Godhead fragments. Green Snow Region, Wild Goose Mountain Range. It was the middle of winter. Heavy snow fluttered in the air and the sky was shrouded by endless lead clouds. The cold wind whistled between heaven and earth. The north wind was biting cold like a knife, turning water into ice. The sword of burial of heaven pierced through the boundless sea of clouds and was about to fly over Wild Goose Mountain Range. But at this moment, the burial of heaven suddenly detected several demon race experts standing in the sky 30,000 miles away. The person in the lead was a charming and captivating fox woman. She was about 7 feet tall and had a graceful figure. She wore a long silver palace dress and a complicated and exquisite divine crown and headdress. He had a snow-white fur cloak draped over his shoulders, and it emitted mysterious and reserved ripples of divine power. Even though this fox woman looked delicate and weak, she was extremely dignified. Behind him, 5 demon clan experts with different appearances stood in a straight line, appearing to be quite well-behaved and respectful. These 5 weirdly dressed demons had both males and females, but they were all divine king experts. Among them, there were 3 7th stage realm high-level god kings and 2 6th stage realm medium-level god kings. As for the female fox leader, her strength had already reached the peak of the 8th degree realm. These 6 god kings would definitely be overlords of a region no matter where they were placed in the Starsource continent. They were existences with awe-inspiring reputations. And at this moment they stood quietly in the sky, staring coldly in front of them, watching the pitch-black divine sword flying towards them. After the burial of heaven observed the 6 divine king experts, it hesitated and slowed down its flying speed. It secretly probed in all directions, searching for any abnormalities between heaven and earth to see if there were any traps or ambushes. It couldn't be helped. The other party came with ill intentions, so it was obvious that they had made arrangements and ambushes in advance. No matter how strong Ji Tianxing was, he had to be careful when dealing with them. As the saying went, it was easy to dodge a spear in the open, but difficult to defend against a hidden arrow. Swoosh. When it was 20,000 miles away from the 6 divine kings, the burial of heaven decided to stop. Although it didn't discover any arrays or ambushes around the 6 divine kings, it couldn't be careless. It stopped in the sky and confronted the divine kings, and it sent a voice transmission to Ji Tianxing to wake him up. The person you're looking for is here. Ji Tianxing, who was cultivating in the distorted space, hurriedly stopped cultivating and left the distorted space. Swoosh. The next moment he appeared high in the sky, holding the burial of heaven sword in his hand, looking at the sky in front of him. When he saw the appearances of the 6 god kings, he had a clear understanding of their strength and cultivation levels. Therefore his lips curled into a cold smile, holding the burial of heaven sword in a reverse grip, he turned and flew towards the east. 20,000 miles away, the 6 divine kings were staring at him and sizing him up. When they saw him suddenly changing direction and taking a detour, everyone frowned and revealed a look of contempt. This kid knows his place, he even knows to avoid danger and take a detour. Rumor has it that he's very arrogant. Seeing him today, he might not be arrogant, but he's really vigilant and cunning. With Great Elder taking action personally together with us, it's easy to kill him. Chapter 3666. Of course. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and looked straight at Xianxia. He asked expressionlessly, I have no enmity with the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Why did you issue the bounty for the Taotai and Qiongqis? Was it Tao Yongxing or Shueshang who issued the bounty? Or was it jointly issued by the 2 of them? The 5 god kings behind Xianxia frowned when they heard that. Their faces became hostile. The groups of god kings hiding in the sea of clouds 50,000 kilometers away were all stunned and doubtful. Obviously, the three groups of god kings thought that Long Tian had offended the 10,000 Demon Alliance and issued the bounty. They did not expect that the 10,000 Demon Alliance had no enmity with Long Tian and only issued the bounty on behalf of the Taotai and Xianxia. Hu Xinyue frowned and said coldly, "The 10,000 Demon Alliance oversees the northwest of the continent and commands the 32 regions. They are respected by billions of people. When the Taotai and Xianxia under their command were massacred and asked for help from the alliance, we naturally would not sit by and do nothing. As for who issued the bounty, we promised to keep it a secret. Why would we reveal it to you?" Ji Tianxing smiled meaningfully and pointed at a certain lead cloud behind Hu Xinyue. He said coldly, "Actually, even if you don't answer, I have an answer in my heart. He is already here, so why hide?" As he said this, everyone turned to look at the lead cloud. Suddenly, the lead cloud that looked normal shook a few times. Hu Xinyue frowned and scolded him in her heart. "Idiot." After a while, the lead cloud surged and an illusory figure flew out and gradually became solid. Swoosh. This old and stooped figure landed beside Hu Xinyue and the others. Ji Tianxing took a closer look and the sneer on his face deepened. "Tao Yongxing, I haven't seen you for 20 days and you look so old and pathetic. Why? Not only did you issue the bounty, you also want to see me killed?" Without a doubt, the white-haired and pathetic demon clan elder was the Taotai clan leader, Tao Yongxing. After the battle at the Surging Sun Lake, Xueshang fled back to the Nebula Cave and no longer accompanied him. He became a loner and did not return to the star-devouring paradise. He had been running around for the bounty. The 10,000 Demon Alliance did not accept empty promises or promissory notes. He could only meet with Great Elder Hu Xinyue as soon as possible to fulfill the bounty that was worth 100 billion, as well as the reward for the 10,000 Demon Alliance. This had almost emptied his family fortune. After all, he only had this much wealth in his interspatial ring. He had been rushing all the way here and hadn't had the time to recuperate or adjust his breathing. Coupled with the unquenchable anger in his heart, he was in such an old and sorry state. After the matter of the bounty was settled, he still wanted to see Hu Xinyue kill Long Tian with his own eyes, so he followed Hu Xinyue to the Azure Snow Domain. Therefore, Ji Tianxing's guess was completely correct. Now that the enemy had met, his eyes were exceptionally red. Tao Yongxing's eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Ji Tianxing and sneered, "Long Tian, no matter how cunning you are, you can't escape death. Although I can't do it myself, I want to see with my own eyes the scene of you being cut into pieces and your bones being ground to dust." Ji Tianxing looked at him with eyes full of pity and sneered, "Tao Yongxing, I have already spared your life, but I didn't expect you to still insist on dying. Xueshang was tricked by you once, so he has learned his lesson and won't get involved in this matter anymore. However, you persevered and would rather let the Taotai clan die with you to take revenge. I didn't expect you to think of a way to kill with a borrowed knife in order to avoid the oath of the heavenly way. This is really too clumsy." Hearing Ji Tianxing's words, Hu Xinyue, the 5 god kings, and the god kings hiding in the sea of clouds all looked at each other in confusion. Everyone was confused and did not understand what had happened between Ji Tianxing and Tao Yongxing previously. Hu Xinyue frowned and thought for a while, but she could roughly guess. He suddenly understood. No wonder Tao Yongxing hated Long Tian to the bone but did not dare to do it himself. It turned out that this old fellow was forced to swear the oath of the heavenly way. Thinking of this, Hu Xinyue looked at Ji Tianxing with more fear in her eyes. Tao Yongxing saw that everyone's expressions were strange and they were all whispering about him. He was instantly enraged. He pointed at Ji Tianxing and shouted angrily, "Long Tian, it's useless even if you have a glib tongue today. Elder Hu Xinyue will bring 3 heavenly kings and 2 inspectors to tear you into pieces. You can bully my clan, but do you think you can do whatever you want and be lawless? My Taotai clan can't deal with you, but there's still the 1,000 Demon Alliance." Tao Yongxing hated Ji Tianxing to the bone and did not want to waste time. He only wanted to see him killed as soon as possible. But this was only one of the reasons. Most importantly, he did not want to talk nonsense with Ji Tianxing anymore, in case Ji Tianxing revealed what had happened before. He would definitely lose face. Ji Tianxing saw that Tao Yongxing was so impatient and could not help but sneer. He pointed at him with his sword and said, "Tao Yongxing, since you have violated the oath and used such a despicable method to take revenge on me, don't blame me for being ruthless. Today I will kill you first." Another day I will destroy the star-devouring cave and make your Taotai clan extinct. This is the consequence of violating the oath of the heavenly way. Tao Yongxing was so angry that his face turned green, and killing intent surged in his eyes. But he did not dare to make a move. He could only suppress his anger and hurriedly send a voice transmission to Hu Xinyue to make a move. Hu Xinyue stared coldly at Ji Tianxing and shouted, "You are really shameless and lawless. This is the territory of the Myriad Demon Alliance. You are not allowed to be presumptuous." After saying that, a divine light flashed in her right hand and she took out her natal weapon. It was a purple gold whip that was studded with gems and divine jades. The other 3 heavenly kings and supervisors also took out their weapons. Divine power surged in their bodies and they were ready to attack. Ji Tianxing glanced at them and looked at the sea of clouds in the distance. He sneered and said, "Since you want to make a move, don't be so secretive. Let those who are lying in ambush come together." Hu Xinyue and the 5 divine kings were stunned for a moment, and they sneered disdainfully. "My 5 comrades and I are enough to kill you. Why do we need others to do it? Longtian, who do you think you are? Do you think you are worthy of us setting up an ambush?" Those are the divine kings from the various regions. They were indeed prepared to kill you. But now that we are here, they can only hide and watch the show. Ji Tianxing finally understood that the 3 groups of divine kings were not from the Myriad Demon Alliance. He shook his head and said in a regretful tone, "It's a pity that those people aren't your accomplices. This king is very curious. Where did you get the courage to kill this king with just 6 people?" Hu Xinyue and the 5 divine kings were instantly enraged, and their bodies were filled with killing intent. "Arrogant and ignorant. Kid, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Die." Everyone shouted angrily and waved their divine weapons. They used their trump cards and attacked Ji Tianxing together. Chapter 3667. Although Hu Xinyue, the 3 heavenly kings and the 2 inspectors did not seem to be very powerful. But Ji Tianxing had indeed underestimated them. The moment they attacked, they used all kinds of divine skills and unleashed a powerful combat power. The 2 supervisors of the 6th sky of King God realm obviously had a joint attack. The divine abilities and ultimate skills that the 2 of them executed could actually be combined into one, causing the power to increase by 3 times. It was comparable to a 7th degree realm high divine king. The 3 heavenly kings of the Thousand Demon League had their own strengths. They had mastered more than 600 divine Tao laws. The sword shadows, giant beasts and light blades that they unleashed carried more than 100 divine Tao laws, causing the space within a radius of 20,000 miles to become chaotic. As for Hu Xinyue, she was indeed the great elder of the Thousand Demon League. Although she was only at the 8th layer divine king realm, her combat power was comparable to that of a 9th layer expert. She was not weaker than Tao Yongxing and Shueshang. She used her left hand to control the space law and sealed the space within a radius of 20,000 miles. She froze the space and made it difficult for Ji Tianxing to move. She waved the purple gold whip in her right hand and millions of starlight rays fell like a meteor shower, covering the land. An incomparably terrifying pressure ruthlessly suppressed Ji Tianxing. He could not move and his divine power was blocked. His combat power was greatly reduced. Without a doubt, most 9th layer divine king realm experts could not resist the joint attack of Hu Xinyue and the others. For example, if Tao Yongxing and Shueshang were in Ji Tianxing's place, they would be injured immediately. This was the source of Hu Xinyue and the others' confidence. But unfortunately, their opponent was Ji Tianxing. He was neither a 9th stage god king nor a monster in the 9th stage of the god king realm. He was a peerless genius who could not be judged by common sense. When the sky was filled with divine spells, the endless sword lights and the rain of stars were about to drown Ji Tianxing, he suddenly stopped. He did not draw his sword, nor did he use any technique to block or dodge. Under Tao Yongxing's anxious and expectant gaze, his body flashed with white light and he disappeared into thin air. Swoosh! In an instant he disappeared without a trace. Even though his aura was still present, the spiritual senses of many God King experts were unable to find any traces of him even after searching the surrounding 50,000 li. In fact, it was not limited to a radius of 100,000 miles. Even if it was a radius of 200,000 miles, the result would be the same. Rumble. Bang 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 bang. The divine light shadows that blotted out the sky and the billions of starlight raindrops all missed their target and hit the wild returning mountain range below. Along with an earth-shaking, deafening boom, everything within a radius of 20,000 miles was turned into ruins, with dust flying in all directions. Hundreds of thousands of peaks disappeared. Mountains, valleys, and rivers were all razed to the ground. Destructive shockwaves spread out in all directions, covering a radius of 50,000 miles. The earth trembled violently for a long time. Around the 20,000 ruins, numerous cracks appeared. Such terrifying destructive power left the three groups of god kings watching the battle secretly speechless. However, everyone's attention was not on this. Hu Xinyue, the five god kings, Tao Yongxing, and the others all frowned as they searched around. Everyone stopped attacking and used all kinds of divine abilities to search for Ji Tianqing's whereabouts. That's strange. Where did that guy hide? Despicable coward. He didn't dare to fight and hid like a coward. Even if I have to dig 30,000 feet into the ground, I will find him. He must have used his spatial powers to hide in an alternate dimension. The god kings discussed in low voices and were rather angry. Especially Tao Yongxing, who was the most angry and anxious. Damn bastard. Wasn't he very arrogant just now? Why did he hide in the blink of an eye? Great Elder, I'll have to trouble everyone to search carefully. You must find him and absolutely cannot let him escape. He also did not understand what method Ji Tianqing used to be able to disappear without a trace. However, he was most worried that Ji Tianqing would take the opportunity to escape. In that case, it would be difficult to kill him again. In just 2 short breaths, everyone used their skills to search a radius of 50,000 miles. The 3 heavenly kings even searched 6 levels of alternate dimensions. However, it was a pity that they did not find anything. Hu Xinyue decisively ordered and said coldly, "This person is cunning. He will definitely take the opportunity to escape." Everyone spread out immediately and search a radius of 50,000 miles repeatedly. Even a peak god king's divine sense could only cover a radius of 50,000 miles. This was the limit of a god king expert. Therefore, Hu Xinyue fixed the search radius to 50,000 miles. She believed that even if Ji Tianqing had great skills, he would not be able to teleport 50,000 miles and escape from this area. Yes. The 3 heavenly kings and the 2 inspectors acknowledged the order and hurriedly spread out with their weapons to search. Tao Yongxing was the most anxious. He even ignored the heavenly Dao oath and joined the search. Anyway, I won't attack him. I'm just searching for his traces. It shouldn't be considered as breaking the oath. Perhaps the heavenly Dao won't nitpick? He comforted himself in his heart. Chapter 3668. Hu Xinyue and the other god kings were focused on searching for Ji Tianqing's whereabouts. Out of the blue, Ji Tianqing suddenly appeared. He actually took the initiative to appear and sneak an attack on the most powerful 9th stage realm god king, Tao Yongxing. This was completely out of everyone's expectations and caught them off guard. Especially the 2 weakest patrol envoys, who were only mid-level divine kings, secretly let out a sigh of relief. According to conventional thinking, everyone knew that Ji Tianqing only had 2 choices for hiding. He could either take the opportunity to escape or wait for an opportunity to sneak an attack. If he were to assassinate, he would definitely kill the weakest person first to reduce the number of opponents and effectively reduce the threat. The 2 inspectors, Hu Xinyue and the 3 heavenly kings, understood this logic, and so did Tao Yongxing. Therefore, when everyone was searching everywhere, Hu Xinyue and the 3 heavenly kings were secretly paying attention to the 2 inspectors to prevent Ji Tianqing from sneaking an attack. As for Tao Yongxing, he was ignored by everyone. But the truth was exactly the opposite of everyone's expectations. Ji Tianqing deliberately chose Tao Yongxing, the toughest bone to chew. But when everyone thought about it, this seemed to be reasonable. After all, the person who issued the bounty order was Tao Yongxing. Ji Tianqing had a blood feud with him, but he had never met the 6 experts from the Thousand Demon Alliance. When Hu Xinyue and the 5 god kings heard Tao Yongxing's miserable cry, they flew towards him and saw the tragic scene of Tao Yongxing being severely injured. Even though the primordial chaos bell had blocked almost half of the attack, he was still stabbed several times and his robe was stained with blood. Not to mention the sword wounds on his body, just his empty and bleeding left eye was a ghastly sight and extremely terrifying. Tao Yongxing's left hand formed a seal and controlled the primordial chaos bell to activate its defensive power to the maximum. His right hand's left eye was bleeding profusely and he let out a heart-wrenching cry as his entire body trembled. The power of the heaven-piercing finger not only pierced through his left eye, it also shook his sea of consciousness, causing him to feel dizzy and his consciousness to become blurry. Even his godhead was greatly affected and his god force was in chaos. More importantly, he had been poisoned by Ji Tianxing's innate fiend soul transference poison, and had not had the time to circulate his internal energy to expel the poison. Even though he had been using his profound skills to suppress the poison and prevent it from exploding, he was still unable to control it. However, at this moment after he was severely injured, his divine power was in chaos. The poison took the opportunity to erupt and spread throughout his body. As a result, his 9th-level Divine King realm strength was reduced by half. Long Tian, you despicable beast, you will die a horrible death. Hiding behind the protective shield of the bell, Tao Yongxing glared at Ji Tianxing, who was thousands of feet away, and cursed with a venomous tone. Ji Tianxing said expressionlessly, "The one who will die a horrible death is you." Tao Yongxing sneered disdainfully, "You want to kill me? Dream on. With the primordial chaos bell in hand, I am invincible. 20 days ago during the battle at Gushing Sun Lake, you were unable to kill me. It's the same today." Although he was severely injured, his life was saved and he could slowly recuperate in the future. However, the corners of Ji Tianxing's mouth curled into a mocking sneer as he said, "Can't kill you? Look behind you." Hearing this, Tao Yongxing's heart skipped a beat and he subconsciously turned his head to look behind him. He saw that there were 5 identical Ji Tianxing in the blood-red light shield behind him. 4 of them were doppelgangers and the last one was his real body. Apparently, he had taken advantage of the gap when Tao Yongxing had taken out the primordial chaos bell to sneak into the shield. This is impossible. Tao Yongxing's face changed dramatically and he widened his eyes in shock. He let out a furious roar. At the same time, Ji Tianxing and the 4 doppelgangers waved their swords at the same time and used their unique skills to attack Tao Yongxing. Blade of Space-Time. Sword of Daytime. Sword of 9 Heavens. Sword of Destruction. Finger of Destruction. All kinds of divine abilities and divine powers with more than 300 types of laws turned into dazzling lights and shadows that drowned Tao Yongxing in an instant. Previously, Tao Yongxing had the primordial chaos bell to block all kinds of divine abilities and killer moves for him and he was naturally safe. But now he and Ji Tianxing were both inside the primordial chaos bell's light shield. The primordial chaos bell could not block the attacks for him and could not unleash its power. He could only activate the divine bell with all his might and release a terrifying power to suppress Ji Tianxing and the 4 doppelgangers. This move was indeed effective. The primordial chaos bell released a vast and irresistible divine power that covered the sky and the earth and suppressed Ji Tianxing and his doppelgangers. Even their divine abilities and consummate skills were trembling in fear. Their speed slowed down and their power weakened a little. However, it only weakened the power and could not neutralize the attacks of Ji Tianxing and his doppelgangers. Tao Yongxing was severely injured and he was inside the shield. He could not dodge at all and was immediately hit by the sword light. Bam. Bam, bam. Following a series of muffled sounds, Tao Yongxing was hit by the sword light. His body trembled and he was sent flying in all directions. Blood splattered all over his body. Even though he avoided his vital parts in time, the sword light and the sky-piercing finger still left a few bloody holes on his body. The splattered blood dyed his clothes, hair and face red, turning him into a bloody man. His strength weakened further and the innate demon soul transference poison in his body erupted violently again, causing his blood and divine power to burn. His entire body burned with bloody flames and his divine power leaked out crazily. Flaming blood spurted out of his 7 orifices and he let out a muffled scream. This was definitely the most dangerous and embarrassing moment he had ever been in his entire life. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Ji Tianxing remained silent and took the opportunity to attack with his 4 doppelgangers. He and his doppelgangers were suppressed by the primordial chaos bell's vast divine power, slowing down their speed and greatly reducing their combat power. However, in order to kill Tao Yongxing as soon as possible, he did not hesitate to use his trump card. Celestial Dragon Tyrant Body. He roared angrily and his entire body bloomed with golden light. His entire body turned into a dragon. Golden light flashed and he turned into a 300-meter-tall golden armored giant. His entire body was covered with dragon scales and a pair of dark golden dragon wings grew out of his back. Unfortunately, his main body used the celestial dragon tyrant body and his strength increased by 6 times, but his 4 doppelgangers did not change. Die! Ji Tianxing roared angrily and held the sword of burial of heaven with both hands. He activated the 330 types of divine power and slashed out the strongest sword of destruction. Swoosh! The 300-meter-long dazzling golden sword was more dazzling than the sun. It slashed down from the sky toward Tao Yongxing. Layers of divine runes of divine power enveloped Tao Yongxing like invisible waves and sealed him in place. He could not dodge. In today's battle, in order to kill Tao Yongxing, this was the 3rd time he used the power of the world. After this, he would have to replenish the 5 elements world with resources worth hundreds of billions to make up for it. Chapter 3669. Kaboom! The dazzling giant sword slashed Tao Yongxing with earth-shattering power. The 4 doppelgangers also used all kinds of divine skills to attack him at the same time. Following a crisp explosion, Tao Yongxing's protective divine light and armor both collapsed and shattered into pieces, filling the sky with debris. Hu Xinyue, the 3 heavenly kings and the 2 inspectors were rushing over as fast as they could. However, they were still tens of thousands of miles away from the primordial chaos bell. They could only vaguely see with their divine senses that Tao Yongxing was shattered into pieces under the dazzling golden sword. It was like a porcelain vase that had been smashed by a hammer, shattering into pieces and splashing out countless fragments. Tao Yongxing's divine body was destroyed by Ji Tianxing just like that. Moreover, it was dismembered into thousands of pieces under the protection of the primordial chaos bell, the Taotai clan's divine weapon. A godhead that was wrapped in dark blue flames and blood-red flames flew out of the shattered pieces and rushed into the sky. Obviously, Tao Yongxing's godhead was corroded by poison and was very weak. He could no longer protect himself. At this moment he only wanted to escape into the primordial chaos bell and use it to escape this place. Killing Ji Tianxing and taking revenge would be left to Hu Xinyue and the experts of the 10,000 Demon League. Since I have decided to kill you, why would I give you a chance to live? Ji Tianxing's lips curled into a cold smile. He looked up at the godhead that was soaring into the sky. He reached out with his giant golden dragon claw and grabbed at the godhead. Kaboom! Instantly, with the godhead as the center, the space within a radius of 10,000 feet was crushed by him. The space shattered and countless pitch-black void cracks appeared and intertwined. Tao Yongxing's godhead floated in the void cracks and could be swept away by the void storm at any time. Once he fell into the void, he would drift to an unknown place. Of course, with his strength of the 9th Heaven King God realm, even if he was exiled into the void, he might not die. The chances of him surviving were very high. Therefore, Ji Tianxing would never let him enter the void. Swoosh! Swoosh! His 4 doppelgangers had long been ready to charge into the fragmented chaotic space. In the crisscrossing cracks in the void, the 4 clones intercepted Tao Yongxing's godhead, captured it and brought it back to Ji Tianxing. The cracks in the void quickly healed under the will of the heavenly Tao. On the other hand, Tao Yongxing's godhead was trapped by the 2 clones' golden light spheres and was struggling madly. As for the primordial chaos bell floating high in the sky, it was also a spiritual treasure. It was conceivable that if they continued to fight, they would not be Ji Tianxing's match and would probably be buried here. If it was possible, the 3 heavenly kings and the 2 patrol envoys did not want to fight anymore. Unexpectedly, Hu Xinyue stared coldly at Ji Tianxing and said expressionlessly, "You killed Tao Yongxing and that's a grudge between you and him. But our league has already accepted Tao Yongxing's money and issued the bounty, so naturally we have to complete the mission. The league has its own rules." Ji Tianxing sneered disdainfully and said, "So, you are the same as Tao Yongxing. You are all idiots who give up your lives for hypocritical dignity." The 3 heavenly kings and the 2 patrol envoys frowned and were about to argue with him. However, Hu Xinyue was expressionless and said firmly, "I have said before, this has nothing to do with dignity, it's just the rules. If the rules are broken, how can the league convince the public?" "Ha ha." Ji Tianxing sneered again and said indifferently, "Since you insist on seeking death, I have no other choice but to fulfill your wishes." The 3 heavenly kings and the 2 patrol envoys frowned and muttered to themselves, "Nonsense. You have a second choice. You can run. As long as you run with all your might, we will definitely not be able to catch up with you. Then we don't have to risk our lives. Even if we can catch up with you, we won't do our best." Of course, they only thought about it in their hearts and did not dare to say it out loud. How shameful. "Come on, let's fight together. There's no need to queue up if you want to die," Ji Tianxing said with a smile as he formed a sword seal with his left hand and pointed the sword at the ground with his right hand. Behind him, the 6 doppelgangers were also accumulating their divine power and were ready to attack. Hu Xinyue frowned and asked, "Why don't you continue to hide and attack? Are you going to fight directly?" Ji Tianxing smiled and said, "Hiding and attacking secretly is just to kill Tao Yongxing as soon as possible. That old man has the primordial chaos spell to protect him. It's hard to kill him without using some tricks. As for you guys, why do you have to attack secretly? Fighting directly is like chopping vegetables." Chapter 3670. Arrogant and ignorant. No matter how good Hu Xinyue's self-control was, she was still infuriated by Ji Tianxing. She shouted and her body lit up with divine light. She unleashed all her power and attacked Ji Tianxing with her purple golden whip. The 3 heavenly kings and the 2 inspectors also roared in unison, brandishing their swords and sabers as they attacked from all sides. Ji Tianxing stood still and ignored the 3 heavenly kings and the 2 inspectors. He only stared coldly at Hu Xinyue. Swish, swish. Meanwhile, the 6 clones behind him shot out with lightning-like speed, swinging their swords at the 5 god kings. Bam, bam, bam. In the next moment, the 5 divine kings and the 6 clones faced the attacks head-on. They used all kinds of divine powers and clashed with each other. Following a deafening explosion, the divine light that covered the sky also collapsed and shattered, splashing out endless fragments of divine light. The destructive shockwave carried the divine light fragments and turned into a 5-colored flood. It spread in all directions and covered a radius of 80,000 miles. The surrounding sea of clouds was instantly swept away. The 3 divine kings who were hiding in the sea of clouds were also pushed back by the violent shockwave. They retreated further away in fear. At this moment, Ji Tianxing and Hu Xinyue flew into the sky and started to fight. Heavenly Fox Moon Slash. Hu Xinyue held her purple golden whip and used her divine body and whip to form a crescent that was 10,000 feet long. She slashed towards Ji Tianxing like a curved blade. As the saber slashed down, a huge ravine appeared in the blue sky, and a wide spatial rift appeared. Before the blade radiance arrived, more than 200 types of laws and divine powers had already sealed a radius of 1,000 miles and suppressed Ji Tianxing. In the layers of laws and divine patterns, there were all kinds of illusory scenes. There was the rise and fall of the sun and the moon, the movement of the stars, the transformation of the world, wind, frost, rain and snow. Even though Ji Tianxing was experienced, he had to admit that Hu Xinyue's strength was far beyond the divine kings of the same level. It was really rare. If they were to fight head-on, Hu Xinyue might not necessarily lose to Tao Yongxing at his peak. She was worthy of being called a formidable opponent. Rising sword. Ji Tianxing, who seemed to be sealed and unable to move, suddenly swung his sword to meet the attack when the heavenly fox falling moon slash descended on his head. His posture was relaxed and the way he swung his sword was natural and unrestrained. He was like a drifting cloud, a gentle breeze blew and stars revolved, and he was extremely conforming with the grand Tao of the heavens and the earth. This sword strike had already reached a perfect state of being perfectly round and returning to its original state. Chapter 3671. The daylight sword had already slashed through Hu Xinyue's sky-moon barrier. If Ji Tianxing had not stopped in time, she would have been slashed by the daylight sword. Even if she would not be killed, she would inevitably be seriously injured. Therefore she stared at Ji Tianxing with a face full of confusion. "You don't dare to kill me? Aren't you very arrogant and conceited? Why are you afraid of the Thousand Demon Alliance?" Hu Xinyue frowned and asked in a low voice. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and laughed lightly. "Do you think I will be afraid of the Thousand Demon Alliance?" Hu Xinyue remained silent. She looked around and her pupils constricted. She saw that 4 of the 3 heavenly kings and 2 patrol envoys had been killed by Ji Tianxing's doppelgangers. The remaining 2 heavenly kings were also covered in blood and were seriously injured. They were surrounded by 6 doppelgangers and there were a few divine swords on their necks. The previously intense battle had long since ended, and the 2 heavenly kings had also become captives. Xianxia felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. Her body was cold and her heart was filled with fear. She then realized how powerful Zhi Tianxing was. He was able to fight against 6 and win in such a short period of time. Such strength was something that many 9th-stage realm god kings could not hope to catch up to. At this moment, Zhi Tianxing kept the barrier of heaven and held it behind his back. He stared at Xianxia and sized her up. After a moment he asked a question that did not make any sense. "You are a 12-tailed sky fox?" Xianxia was stunned and asked in surprise. "The world only knows about the 9-tailed demon fox, moon fox, ice fox and fire fox. How do you know about the sky fox?" The demon clan's fox clan was divided into several bloodlines. The most common ones were the ice fox and fire fox, followed by the moon fox and the 9-tailed demon fox. But very few people knew that the sky fox bloodline was the most powerful and honorable in the fox clan, and they were the least in number. Because the sky fox was the absolute royal family of the fox clan. Even if it was Xianxia, the world only thought of her as moon fox. Zhi Tianxing looked at Xianxia and said with a playful smile, "If I'm not wrong, the heavenly fox should be one of the top and rare bloodlines of the fox clan. That's why no one knows about it." Xianxia frowned and asked in a low voice, "So what? Since you know so much about the heavenly fox, have you seen one before?" "Of course." Zhi Tianxing nodded. Xianxia's eyes widened. Surprise and excitement flashed in her eyes. She asked subconsciously, "Where have you seen him? Where is she?" Zhi Tianxing noticed the subtle changes in her expression. He thought for a moment and asked, "Tell me the details and stories of the heavenly fox clan. If I'm satisfied, I might tell you the answer." "This." Xianxia hesitated. The 3 groups of divine kings discussed for a while and then dispersed. In a few days, the news of this battle would spread to the various regions in the northwest. By then Long Tian's name would definitely shock the world. Xianxia used her original form of a heavenly fox to travel 300,000 miles in the sky. She only stopped at the peak of a snow mountain when she entered the depths of the wild returning mountain range. Swoosh! The moonlight flashed. She kept her original form of a heavenly fox and turned back into a cold and beautiful woman. As soon as she landed on the snow, she spat out a mouthful of blood. The scorching god's blood actually melted more than half of the ice and snow on the mountain peak, and smoke rose in spirals. Obviously, her injuries were not light and her god power was in chaos. The injuries of the 2 heavenly kings were obviously more serious than Xianxia's. Even if Zhi Tianxing kept his 6 doppelgangers and gave them back their freedom, they still sat on the snow and circulated their energy to suppress their injuries. They did not have the slightest intention to resist. Xianxia kept her purple gold whip and hurriedly sat cross-legged on the snow. She took out 2 high-grade King Divine pills and consumed them. A quarter of an hour later she refined a portion of the medicinal power and temporarily suppressed her injuries. Only then did she open her eyes and look at Zhi Tianxing. Zhi Tianxing had been standing at the edge of the cliff 1,000 feet in front of her. He looked down at the snow cliff and stood there quietly. On the surface he seemed to be thinking about something. But in reality he was communicating with Qianyu, who was in the distorted space and time. Chapter 3672. The reason why you spared my life is not because of the Demon Alliance. It is because you are related to the Heavenly Fox clan, right? Xianxia sat on the snow looking at Zhi Tianxing with a pale face and asked. Of course, before speaking she had already set up a soundproof array to cover the 2 seriously injured heavenly kings. Even though the 2 heavenly kings were busy healing and unlikely to hear her conversation with Zhi Tianxing, she was still very careful. Zhi Tianxing was still looking down at the snow cliff and did not turn around. He said indifferently, "You should tell me the details of the Heavenly Fox clan first." Xianxia pursed her lips. After a moment of silence she said, "In today's dragon realm the 5 continents and 4 seas can live in peace, and all the clans can thrive and grow. For example, the Fox clan's 4 main branches were all prosperous and had many descendants, producing many experts. But who knows that only the Heavenly Fox clan has the royal bloodline and the real leader of the Fox clan. Unfortunately, the bloodline of the Heavenly Fox clan is extremely rare and precious, and they can only be female. It is impossible for them to reproduce and grow. Today there are only a few Heavenly Fox clan members left in this world. They can be counted with one hand. Ji Tianxing frowned slightly, but he listened quietly and did not interrupt. Xianxia looked up at the sky and smiled bitterly. She said self-deprecatingly, "The 4 branches of the Fox clan are prosperous, but they have even forgotten their king. These stupid and ignorant guys don't know it all. If not for the sacrifice of the Heavenly Fox clan, how could they have peace and stability today?" At this point, 2 drops of tears rolled down Xianxia's eyes and she clenched her fists. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked, "The sacrifice of the Heavenly Fox clan? In exchange for the peace and stability of the 4 branches of the Fox clan? What is going on?" Xianxia's body trembled and she remained silent. Obviously, she regretted saying this and did not want to continue revealing the secret. But she also understood that Ji Tianxing was not a merciful person. If she insisted on hiding it, Ji Tianxing might not be merciful and spare her life. Thus, after a moment of silence, she continued, "In ancient times, the Fox clan was one of the sinful clans. As the king of the Fox clan, the Heavenly Fox clan could only sacrifice themselves to protect the entire Fox clan. Otherwise, all the foxes will be exterminated." "Sinners? What do you mean?" This was the first time Ji Tianxing had heard these 2 words and he was puzzled. Xianxia took a deep look at him and sneered, "Now I am even more suspicious that you are not an orthodox dragon. If you're really a dragon, then you should know that the dragon race is also one of the sinful races. Furthermore, the dragon race should be the leader of the sinners. Our fox race is only a vassal of your dragon race." Ji Tianxing's brows furrowed even tighter as he murmured to himself, "The dragon kind is the leader of sinners? The Fox clan was implicated by the dragon clan? However, the dragon clan is the master of the dragon realm. Who can convict the dragon clan?" "Ha ha." Xianxia immediately raised her head and laughed. Her expression was miserable and her tone was full of mockery. "So what if you're from the dragon race? So what if it's the Phoenix clan and the Kailan clan? Living under the heavens and in the heavenly way, they can only bow their heads and accept their fate." Ji Tianxing was stunned for a moment, and then he suddenly understood and asked, "You mean the sinners were decided by the heavenly way?" Xianxia was silent and only sneered, which was a tacit admission. Ji Tianxing was even more puzzled and asked, "But what did the Dragon clan, the Phoenix clan, the Kailan clan and the Fox clan do to be deemed as sinners by the heavenly way?" Xianxia continued to sneer and said in a mocking tone, "You're asking me? You should ask the heavenly way." Ji Tianxing remained silent as he speculated in his heart. "I didn't expect that there would be such a thing as a sinful clan. Even the most powerful demon clans are sinful clans recognized by the heavenly Tao. However, why didn't my master tell me these secrets? He is the master of the heavenly dragon continent, the first divine king after the ancient times. He should know these secrets." Thinking of this, he turned to look at Xianxia and asked in a deep voice, "Even the peak divine king may not know these secrets. You are just the great elder of the Thousand Demon Alliance. How can you know so clearly with your mere strength of the 8th degree realm?" As far as I know, the Fox clan is best at disguising and deceiving. They are very cunning. Is this a lie made up by you?" Xianxia looked at him and sneered, "If you didn't spare my life and have a relationship with the Heavenly Fox clan, why would I tell you this top secret? Besides, these secrets were not found by me but the Alliance Master told me." "Alliance Master? Divine King Luo?" Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked, "It is said that he is one of the 2 new peak divine kings in the Star Source continent in the past 1,000 years. He is a newly risen peak divine king, but he knows these secrets. This prince is suddenly interested in him. Tell me his story." "Do you think I am telling you a story?" Xianxia sneered disdainfully and said expressionlessly, "You haven't answered me. What is your relationship with the Heavenly Fox clan?" Ji Tianxing avoided answering and continued to ask, "Let me ask you, what is the relationship between you and the few Heavenly Foxes that exist today? Are you in contact with them?" Xianxia frowned and said coldly, "I have said so much. It is time for you to answer my question. But don't forget, your life is in my hands. I can spare you, but I can also kill you. Long Tian was also expressionless and his tone was cold and stern. Moreover, you should know that I have killed my way here. I'm not a kind person. Hu Xingyue frowned again and thought to herself, soon the Alliance Master will be here soon. I will endure for a while more and delay for a while. So she closed her eyes and replied indifferently, as far as I know, there are only 4 heavenly foxes in this world. 2 of them are my clansmen. They are still young and are cultivating. The other one is my mother, the master of Moon Divine Palace. Ji Tianxing asked again, are your 2 clansmen in Moon Divine Palace being taught by your mother? How do you know? Hu Xingyue frowned again and asked in a low voice, her eyes full of vigilance. It was obvious that she was very concerned about her mother's safety. Ji Tianxing smiled and said, nothing, I guessed. Hu Xingyue said coldly again, stop talking nonsense and answer my question. Ji Tianxing still did not answer and said with a smile, if I find another clansman for you, how will you deal with her? What? Hu Xingyue's expression suddenly changed. Her originally cold face was filled with shock and disbelief. Her cold eyes widened slightly and revealed unconcealable shock and joy. Ji Tianxing used his special ability to observe all of this and determined that it was real and not fake. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.